Good afternoon, everybody. Eric Foster, co-founder of the Future Today and Tomorrow Super PAC. So I wanted to start off today because I think that there's something that really is important when we talk about where we are politically, where we are in terms of governance and structure and our life in general. And the challenge that we're facing as people, as a country, as a world. One of the most important parts of the American governmental system in our Republican form of government is the co equal branches: judiciary, Congress, which is the legislative, and the executive. Right now, Congress isn't working, but this is going to be a critique of how, in the pro democracy camp, in the pro maintaining our constitutional republic and representative democracy camp, in traditional non-MAGA media, as well as in the elected officials and candidates. It's not Congress that's not working. It's the MAGA congressional subsidiary that runs Congress that's in the majority right now that's not working. Calling it exactly what it is and making sure that that clarification is clear, I believe is important. And we believe is important in respect of how do you educate voters? How do you educate businesses? How do you educate consumers, advocacy groups, foreign partners, even children, with regards to where we are, what's not working, and how do we get to a process where we can actually make things work? And so, to that point, I want to tackle the framing of Congress versus the MAGA congressional subsidiary majority, formerly known as the Republican Party. Now, when you use the term Congress to describe what's happening, you tend to narrowcast everything into a framework that, well, somehow the reason why we're facing this problem or these challenges is because of all of the members of Congress, MAGA congressional subsidiary members, any non-MAGA Republicans that are left, Democratic members, and independent members. And that's not the reality. Democratic members, independent members, and the non-MAGA Republican couple that are left, they actually are trying to, for the most part, do work and function as Congress is supposed to. But when you lump them in, that's like, I remember back in the early 2000s when the Detroit Pistons were starting to come back for the second iteration of championship success. But the Eastern Conference as a whole was down. You were only having maybe 3 to 5 teams that would go into the playoffs with winning records versus the West, which had sometimes 11, 12 teams with winning records. So there felt like there was an imbalance and that the West was all powerful and the East was this little weak child that couldn't compete until 2004 when the going to work Pistons crushed the Lakers and stood back up and said, you know, East Coast basketball and Midwest basketball and the Eastern Conference, we're still here and we're as good as you all are. Well, but before that, they were being lumped in with everybody else, lumped in with the New Jersey Nets, lumped in with Indiana, who couldn't win, lumped in with Philadelphia, lumped in with everybody else who was having failure after the end of the Bulls. Well, the problem with being lumped in with everybody else is it makes people look at you cross-eyed and side-eyed, even if you're different. So whereas the Pistons were different than the rest of the Eastern Conference going into the 2004 finals, they were grouped in and looked at as the next version of the New Jersey Nets or the Philadelphia 76ers. They'll maybe win a game, maybe two, but they're not going to touch the Lakers who beat San Antonio, which the Lakers of San Antonio were head and shoulders above everybody else. But the Western Conference was just stacked with great teams. Pistons went in and won. Now, how does Detroit Pistons success coming out of the Eastern Conference and not being grouped in with the rest of what was coming out of the Eastern Conference relate to Congress and relate to framing? Well, it relates because when you say Congress isn't working, when you say Congress has ceded its power, when you say Congress is a rubber stamp, when you say Congress has become the Politburo or the Duma for the Trump regime, what you're saying is you're also including Democratic members, independent members, and non-MAGA Republican members. And that's not the case. Call things what they are. The New Jersey Nets had a really good team, but they were not NBA championship material. Let's just be real. They were not winning the championship. The Philadelphia 76ers with AI, the original AI, Allen Iverson, before AI, artificial intelligence, came up to try to take his place, and Dikembe and Eddie Jones and all of those players, really good team, but they weren't NBA championship material. You have to call them what they were versus saying that, well, the 2004 Detroit Pistons were just going to be the next iteration of the New Jersey Nets. All of those other members who are trying to actually do the work, when you lump them in with those who have not only given up their control, and let's get away from this myth that they're giving up their control because they are afraid of the MAGA regime and the appointees or Trump or the voters. They've given up, they've actually joined in. They haven't given up. This is what they want. But when you group everybody else in with the MCS, MAGA Congressional Subsidiary Party, you now are making it seem like nobody is worthwhile in Congress. And that's just not true. So, if we're going to get to an approach of policy and start building actual trust in government, we have to also call things exactly as they are. And in this instance, what is the reality and the totality of what we're facing right now is that the MAGA Congressional Subsidiary Majority, just those members, have joined with the MAGA dictatorship regime to give up their constitutional power to the regime so that the unitary executive theory, which in simple terms is a dictatorship, so that a dictatorship can run all across the land in America. If you as a voter don't want that, if you as a business don't want to live in that world, if you as a person of faith say, that's not my Christian or Islamic or Jewish or Buddhist experience, then you have to also be able to delineate between who are the ones causing the actual problems versus who are the ones trying to solve the problems. Don't group them all together. If my Pistons would have listened to everybody else, grouping them in together with Indiana and New Jersey and the Boston Celtics at that time, that was the Good Lord. Jamal Mashburn, I believe, was on that team, and Antonio Walker, and they had Paul Pierce, but that was that iteration. A whole lot of Kentucky players were on that team. It was basically Kentucky Wildcat pro version of a basketball team, but I digress. Then they may not have had the confidence to beat up on the Lakers so bad that a 4 games to 1 victory really felt like a 5-0 sweep because of how thoroughly the Pistons whooped up on the Lakers. So when you group everybody together, you're minimizing the good actors, the ones who can be a part of the solution and fix things because you're grouping in with everybody else. Please separate. In communicating about it, please separate. Congress is not the same. You have those who are actually trying to do the work versus the MAGA Congressional Subsidiary Party, who has decided they want to be dictatorship. They're beyond dictatorship curious. They're full on dictatorship sexual. So make that separation, make that segregation, and then act with your voting and economic power accordingly. All right. Thank you. And if you want to follow us at the Future Today and Tomorrow Super PAC, you can visit us on the website, www.futurepac.today. We're also active on Apple Podcasts, on Substack, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Threads, on Instagram. Please follow, please join, please support, because as a super PAC, we're also trying to not just move policy, but we're trying to change who's elected so that we have officials that are elected across the country who actually believe in the fullness of what America can be as a constitutional republic and representative democracy, form of government that's also inclusive with understanding that we are multiracial, multicultural, multi-religion based society, and that is a good thing. So support us so we can do all the good work that we're trying to do out here. And thank you again, Eric Foster, co-founder of the Future Today and Tomorrow Super PAC. Have a blessed day.